Next in.
All right, we got Kit Swain, VP of Product at Relo Metrics here today for our interview. He is, like I said, VP of Product, and we're focusing right now on the product space, product management space. And he's going to be able to give us a bunch of insight into how he got to where he's at, a lot of stuff on Relo specifically, the product space. But more importantly, we're going to have a little bit of fun with Kit. So Kit, nice to have you on our show here. Thank you for joining us.
Taylor and Shane, it's good to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, so tell us right now, Kit, where are you at? Where are we talking to? Where are you coming to us from?
Based in Los Angeles. Our offices, back when we were in the office, is in Santa Monica.
All right, and so what do you got for weather?
Today, it's we got a heat wave coming through the southwest, so we got about 100 degrees out here.
Oh.
I'm in East LA right now.
Oh,
I'm sure it's more moderate and temperate back in Santa Monica.
Yeah. So we are in Nashville. It's 85 and sunny today.
I'm
It's
envious.
about as gorgeous as it gets. Although you have the perfect weather kind of year round.
Yeah,
so
it's pretty good in LA. I can't complain.
yeah.
My favorite is in Nashville when it's 100 degrees. It's 100 degrees on temperature, but then you've got your humidity numbers that jacked it up to like 114.
Yes.
Yeah, there you go.
So it can get hot. All right, so Kit, we're going to do some rapid fire questions first to get to know you so that everyone out there can get to know Kit a little bit personally. All right, we'll start with the really crappy question. Fun fact. Give me a fun fact about yourself.
Fun fact, I'm actually in the process of trying to make it to all of the national parks in the U.S. So been to 19, love to be outdoors, and it's been a great activity, especially during COVID lockdown. A lot of the national parks are still open, and so been to most of the ones on the West Coast and west of the Rockies, but I've got a number on the East Coast that I still have yet to make it to.
All right, so clear follow-up question to that is what, Shane?
Top three. You got to give us your top three and why.
All right. Well, we just did a trip up to Seattle, and I will say Olympic National Park really blew it out of the water. I'll give that one my third spot, partially because it was unexpected. I didn't know about Olympic National Park even before going up there. The main purpose was Rainier, but Olympic is just great because it's got such diversity of ecosystem. You've got the beach along the Pacific, you've got the mountains, you've got rainforest. It's spectacular.
And the joke is that really you went up there for Forks because you're a Twilight fan, right?
No, because I'm a Twin Peaks fan.
Got it.
Twin Peaks also filmed up there. Yeah, so that's number three. Number two is Sequoia. Absolutely unreal. You've got Mineral King, and you've got the giant, majestic sequoias, which for me, never really seen anything quite like the trees that you get in Sequoia. And number one is Glacier National Park, which is, I would have to say, the crown jewel of America's national park system up in Montana.
All right.
It's absolutely
trivia question. What is the most popular by amount of visitors per year national park in America?
Great Smoky Mountains.
Yes, he knew it. Good for him. It's in Tennessee. Yes. Wow.
I know my national parks. Don't try to trick me up.
Yeah, Gatlinburg. It's because it is like within 10 hours of like 2/3 of the U.S. population between Chicago, New York, D.C., Boston, all can drive to it. So it's the most toured national park in America. It's pretty awesome. When you come here, let us know. We will we'll drive you around, although it's like 3 hours from here. All right, so let's see. We'll skip our travel question because we know that. So here's the good question. What's your favorite movie?
It's been a favorite since my childhood, and that is The Princess Bride.
Oh, good movies. Because there's going to be a lot of judging based on this. Like, we're going to ask this of a lot of people.
I'm sure.
All right, Princess Bride is a fantastic movie. It's excellent. Fred Savage has a small part in it, which is probably forgotten. It's a good movie. So Shane, what's your favorite?
Gladiator. It has been and for probably forever will be. Anytime I'm a little, 1 or 2 beers in, it's like always like, are you not entertained? And I replay it all the time. I have to.
All right, mine's Braveheart, so mine was the best, but that's all right. And then sports team. Do you have a sports team that you follow?
Yeah, absolutely. So Relo Metrics, we are in the sports industry. So, it's not a prerequisite to work at Relo that you're into sports, but it definitely doesn't hurt. I grew up in the Midwest. I grew up in Lawrence, Kansas, and being from Kansas and going to KU, I am a diehard KU basketball fan. And so my favorite sports team, even though they didn't win it all, is the 1997 KU Jayhawks.
Is that with Danny Manning?
No, he was in the 80s. He was late 80s, yeah. Danny Manning was great. So it was Paul Pierce led. Had Jacques Vaughn, Rafe LaFrance, some all-time great collegiate players. And
that's right. I sounded pretty stupid saying Danny Manning in the 90s. Good catch. All right. My B. All right. So I'm glad. I like it. Rock Chalk Jayhawk. Very good. Yep. That's right. You're a Jayhawk. So, let's move into you on a professional level a little bit.
Sure.
So how did you get, you're in product management, which, as you said even earlier when we weren't recording, a little bit less well-known field. How did you get into product management?
Well, I think it's kind of how a lot of people get into product management. You go into a job and you're actually doing something else, but the company that you're working for has a need in product. And so you dabble in it a little bit and then you kind of just get sucked in and you find yourself working in it full time. And so I was in business school back in 2015. And for my summer internship, I was doing an operations internship at a wine startup in LA, which was a pretty good gig to get. They do direct-to-consumer wine subscription. And I was, like I said, working on the operations team. I had a couple operations projects I was working on. And they had a company of about 40 people. They didn't really actually have any product managers. A lot of startups, it's either the CEO or one of the founders who's driving that product vision. But they had a need for somebody to do some of the execution on the product side. And so I stepped in. I did a project within the product realm for Club W. And really, from that point on, was intrigued and really excited and passionate about product. And so after business school, accepted a full-time job doing product management and digital strategy.
So question, right, is like while you were in college prior to that internship, what did you assume that you were going to do after graduation? Did you think it would be something like product? Do you think it was something that was totally radically different? Because I know that as people are starting to graduate, picking and making a decision on where to go kind of gets scary, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I was really interested in business development. I wanted to do something in that realm. Just the idea of like working on new initiatives, working on opportunities to grow the business was intriguing to me. And when I started exploring roles and opportunities in business development, I found that it meant like one of a couple of different things at companies. Either it was more of like a sales oriented role, which wasn't my specialty or my passion. Or it was, again, something that was largely driven from the executive, C-suite level. And I didn't have a position or opportunity in business development to move into that. And so as I was looking for other things that I was interested in and passionate about, product management really stuck out. And I don't have a coding or development background, technical background per se. I've actually always worked in technology. After undergrad, I went into Deloitte Consulting and their technology practice and did ERP style implementation work. And so I was always close and working with technologists, but I didn't have a technology background. But there's really a couple of different styles or types of product managers. You have the really the product managers that are really technology focused and have that technical expertise. And then you have product managers that are more business oriented or business mindset focused. And it's not to say there's not a spectrum where you could have a little bit of both, but with my background, I had a major in accounting in undergrad. I went back and got my MBA. And so I had that business mindset to an approach to product. And I love building things. I think as a product manager, you find yourself at the fulcrum, kind of like at the center point of a team, of an organization where you're working with a number of different stakeholders and doing type of like stakeholder management and coalition building. And really love that about product in addition to getting to build things every day.
Yeah, and so like looking at your career history, right? Like you've obviously been really, really successful in the product world, and you've been successful enough to get promoted multiple times, right? So what would you say? I mean, shamelessly, this is me asking you to brag a little bit, right? Which is like why do you think, you stood out compared to everyone else in the crowd that allowed you to become the VP of product at Relo Metrics? Because it easily could have been somebody else, right? So what about your career path allowed you to get there so other, aspiring product managers can also rise through the ranks?
Yeah, I mean, I think you don't really necessarily need to have a vision of ultimately what you want to be in your career and just try to do things that get you to that point in your career. That's not a successful way to operate in terms of career growth, in my mind. What has worked for me always has been one, in every level that I've ever worked in, is identifying a mentor who I wanted to learn from and emulate in a role that was interesting to me. And so I think part of it is, you don't really necessarily get anywhere on your own. It's people around you that build you up, that you learn from, and that elevate you in your role. And so I would say that a lot of my success can be attributed to what I've learned from other people who I've admired and who I've learned from along the way. But that's not to say that I didn't work hard, create opportunities for yourself. A lot of it ends up being luck and timing. I was listening to a podcast the other day with somebody that's completely out of my realm. Barack Obama was talking on Conan's podcast and talking about, it's people ask him, like, how did you end up becoming president of the United States and get to where you were? And, he said he would be lying if a lot of it isn't necessarily like timing and luck along the way and the opportunities. The harder that you work, the more opportunities you're going to create for yourself. But it's taking advantage of those opportunities along the way.
Absolutely. How about this? You get a chance right here, shout out your mentor or a mentor, not everyone, but who would be a mentor that you could shout out to the world, to the roughly 60 million people that are watching this?
No, that's great. That's a great question. I will give props to somebody early in my career, David Ferguson, who really took me under his wing. I was one of many on a huge project, and I was just learning my way just out of school. And he not only, showed me how to carry myself professionally or how to think about what we were doing, but was also incredibly supportive as a mentor, always encouraging, gave me great business, professional advice, and personal advice. And so I would love to give him a shout out.
That's awesome. I think we need to do that, right? Like shout out our mentors every once in a while.
Absolutely. I love that question. Yeah. And I think, early on in my career, great professional advice that he gave me, which I would say is also personal advice, is that your work is always going to be there for you. And if there's something that's important that's happening in your personal life, it's you're celebrating your parents' anniversary or a birthday or like a family reunion, like you have to take advantage of those things because there's only so many times that happens in your life. And I really appreciated that because, early in my career, heads down, like always doing work, always trying to be focused on work. But, it makes you a better professional when you take that time for yourself.
100%. Sean Miller's mine. Who's yours, Shane?
Mine was Chris Herdigan, man.
Perfect.
Which reported to Taylor back in the day, actually. Me and Taylor met each other like 10, 15 years ago when I was fresh out of school, and he was like my mentor's mentor back in the day prior to us getting together, actually.
Absolutely.
I love it.
So what would you say, and this will we'll move into Relo Metrics. Tell us a little bit about the company that you are, VP of product, your leading product at Relo Metrics. What is it that Relo Metrics does?
Relo Metrics works in the sports sponsorship space. So we work with sports teams, we work with sports properties, and work with brands that purchase sports sponsorships. And we help them evaluate the performance of those sports sponsorships, primarily by identifying where exposures occur across social media and across broadcasts, so they can, one, understand the quality of those exposures and whether or not it's going to be driving awareness, and measure the duration and give those exposures a media equivalency. So if you as a marketer, we're going to go out and spend X amount of dollars on paid advertisements or commercials, can have a benchmark to equate that to from a sponsorship standpoint. Because a lot of that exposure that you're getting is organic. And so understanding the value of that organic exposure based on assets that are in stadiums and arenas.
It's like if I look at a photo of a friend or of a LeBron James dunking a basketball, but behind LeBron James is a banner ad for next level recruiting.
Yeah, exactly.
Then we would get the metric that, hey, that got exposed X amount of times on Facebook or social media and stuff like that.
Yep. And so for sports teams, it's a really good opportunity for them to be able to take that value back to the brands and show them the amount of exposure that they're getting based on that partnership with that sports entity. In addition to the positive affiliation of being associated with the Kansas City Royals or the Kansas Jayhawks. And for a brand, you have a portfolio. A lot of these brands that are dealing with tens or hundreds of millions of dollars in sports sponsorship, you have a portfolio where you're sponsoring a handful of teams in Major League Baseball, a handful of teams in the NBA or across collegiate athletics. For them, it's an opportunity for them to evaluate how each of their sponsorships is performing as it relates to the amount that they're spending in these different industries or with these different properties.
So do you personally work directly with the sports teams?
Yep. Yeah.
Oh, so you have like the coolest job in the world.
It's a lot of fun to say, oh, I'm going into a meeting with the Kansas City Chiefs today, when I grew up a diehard Kansas City Chiefs fan my entire life, and to talk to friends about, oh yeah, meeting with the director of sponsorships with the Kansas City Chiefs today.
So you're going to have to do me a favor. My son is 9, and he said on his golden birthday, Dad's job is to get him to meet Patrick Mahomes, and he turns 11. So we got to make that happen. However, that's got to work out. we got to pull that off. That's awesome. My best friend when I was growing up's dad was head of marketing for M&M Mars. So not only was it candy, it was head of sports marketing for M&M Mars. Cool. This is like the coolest job ever. So you have the coolest job ever.
It's fun. It's fun to get to work in sports, even if you're not working with the property or with the team, working sports adjacent or working with the properties it's awesome.
Yes. So just let me know where I need to fill out a form to be to apply to work over at the product over there. So what would you say would be when you look for candidates to hire over at Relo Metrics, what are you looking for?
Yeah, so in the product management realm specifically, I'm looking for somebody that's going to be able to come in and contribute immediately, that has demonstrated success in their past jobs. And product management, you have to have a really wide skill set. You have to have certain technical skills to be able to operate within a product manager's role. But it's equally as important. There's a number of soft skills that you have to be able to plan, to be able to communicate, to be able to strategize. I give my team a lot of autonomy. That doesn't mean that I'm going to sit back and delegate all my work to my team, but that means that I'm going to give them the reins to run with managing and being product owners. And so I want people who are going to be able to come in and think strategically, and be able to work collaboratively across the various stakeholders that they're interacting with.
So we had to break that down, right? Like, so there's like the technical component and then there's the soft skills component. So I'd love to go kind of through both of those. So it's like step one being, what would be the biggest technical component that you typically look for? And then to even dive a little bit deeper, like what are the technical things that you look for? And what are the biggest mistakes from a technical standpoint do candidates make throughout the interview process that you see?
Sure. So starting with the technical skills that I'm looking for, data is becoming increasingly important, I think, across all job functions. Always been important in sales, trying to hit your sales target, and customer success, renewal targets, and things like that. But in product, equally as important that you're setting those KPIs and measuring yourself against those KPIs. And so from a technical skill set, I expect product managers that are going to be on my team to be highly analytical. And a lot of times the technical skills that I'll look for are things like, do they have SQL experience? Are they able to write a query and get access to data? We use a platform called Looker, which is a data visualization platform like Tableau. So being able to operate with hands-on with data and pull data that is important to managing the product is probably one of the first things that I look for. And some of those things can be learned. So like if you've never used Looker, but you're highly capable
Tableau,
in Excel
Power BI,
or Tableau, or Power BI, those types of things.
Okay.
Yeah, you can learn the skills to be successful at our company. But that's definitely one of the first things. I would say another technical skill is, just the process. Product management is a highly process-driven role. I come with a consulting background, so I think I probably apply a bit more process than maybe some other, product orgs out there. But just knowing the ins and outs of agile development, of A/B testing, of managing the Scrum process with the engineering team, and thinking about it from a jobs to be done standpoint and a need standpoint. Getting to your next question, I think that's a nice segue into your next question of when a product manager comes in, where are some areas where I've seen instances of them, falling short on the interview. It's when we'll structure our interviews with, asking a product manager to go through a problem that we might be facing, and how they would approach that problem. And if you come in as a potential candidate and you're presented with a problem and you jump straight to a solution or some type of design, those are areas from a product manager's mindset and a technical product management skill set or like framework that is a red flag for me. I want a product manager who's inquisitive, who's going to be asking a bunch of questions, really digging into the business, into the problem, making sure that they understand the problem, and thinking about it from what is the job that's being done, or what is the problem that we're solving for the client or for the stakeholder, rather than saying, oh, okay, you're presenting me with this problem. Here are 3 solutions that I would think about going with. But when you go to the solution, you become enamored or infatuated with the solution. You lose your vision of what you're trying to solve, and can start building something that isn't ever going to be used or effective for your stakeholders.
One of the things that I've heard from a lot of people is they're like, you're not necessarily answering the question as to why if you're immediately providing an answer, because you might even give false positive data where you're like, hey, here are things, like these are the things that we want to achieve. And they're like, oh, given that information, this is what I would do. But without clarifying or asking like additional questions, you might be answering the wrong problem, even though it might be right in front of you, right? You even trap, like I know people in product, they'll trap them by giving them data that ultimately is not important with an end result, thing that they want, but the data that's there is totally irrelevant to the question, and they just put that there just to see if people are going to bite immediately, or if they're going to ask, why are these things important first, and then realize those things actually aren't important, and then they actually provide the right tools for them to achieve like the actual answer that they want. So I'm curious if you guys do something like that in your interview process, or if it's not so tricky, right? Like some people, they love their trick questions. Some people don't.
Right. We don't ask those types of, we don't like plant false evidence or things to try to get product managers off the trail. That's interesting that some, and I don't necessarily think it's a bad approach in terms of going about it. We will provide a lot of data sometimes, like what we do even before we get into the interview and have some of those other questions is we'll give our product managers, when we're hiring for product, a prompt. And what we do is we take a real business problem that we're struggling with and use that as the prompt to get insight into how other product managers would think about it. And so for us, it's really, a dual opportunity. One is to evaluate the product managers and how they think about product and how they would approach a problem. And the other is to think about how, we're in it every day. So to come with new, fresh perspectives for us is also super valuable.
Well, that kind of leads into one of like our next questions, which was like, what is something today that Relo Metrics is working on that you think is like super exciting, or stuff that you can share, right? Like I know some people
of course,
can't share everything, but what's something exciting?
Yeah, so I think for us, we came into the sports sponsorship space under the wing of our parent company. We used to be Gum Gum Sports, working within Gum Gum Advertising, utilizing our computer vision technology to identify visual exposures across social media and broadcast. And so that is how we got entered into this space. The sports sponsorship space, like all things in technology, it changes pretty quickly and it evolves pretty quickly. We've identified a good opportunity outside of just exposure detection to be able to tell our clients more about the audience of who they're reaching, and ultimately to be able to better understand those down funnel objectives that companies, why brands invest in sponsorships. Things like, what's the brand affinity or favorability? Is this sponsorship actually driving sales for our business? And so for me, it's going to be the evolution of who we are as a business and how our product can help facilitate that transition. So there's a lot of disparate services out there that have operated in a product space or in a sports space related to what they do. So we do exposure detection and place a value against those exposures. There's companies that are really research oriented and research focused. We're trying to bring technology to the sports sponsorship space and hold this under one umbrella so that we can provide real-time data to teams and to brands to be able to use that data to make better business decisions. And so for me, it's the evolution of our business and evolution of our product, and knowing that there are a lot of opportunities in the space. And I love to build things. Our team loves to build things. And so for me, it's going to be exciting where we evolve and where we go to.
I think it's absolutely awesome. I have become a giant fan now of Relo Metrics. Like the concept of it is awesome. I forget how you described the organic. I think you said organic exposure. Because you think about it and you're like, okay, cool. So I'm gonna, stick the cup that I have has Nissan on it or whatever company is one thing. That's very clear how much you paid for it. It's all of this, the social media and everything else, this exposure that people are getting, and broadcast. When you watch a show or watch a game, you see all the different, whether it's Jeep or whatever company it is. There is so many opportunities to be exposed, especially now with social media, that probably 10 years ago weren't getting captured, weren't being analyzed. You guys have found a way to show the sports team, hey, that billboard is exposed way more often than just the 25,000 fans in the stadium or whatever it is. So I think that's fantastic. I think I could see from a sports team perspective where they're like, wow, I need this. This is great information for me to now go out and get Jeep to sponsor and put up the billboards throughout the stadium and everything else. That's fantastic. All right, I got two final questions. Number one, and we'll get to the really good question in a second, but what advice would you give to someone who's listening, who's like, gosh, this sounds cool, love to get in, obviously would love to work for Relo, but just in general, I want to get into the product space, product management. I'm aspiring to do that. How do I get there?
Yeah, I think it totally depends on where you're at in your career. If you're in college, I think there's probably a lot of great classes and focuses where you could get into that now. That wasn't the case back when I was in school. There was no product management focus. I think if you're at a company and you have a product management function, I would say the best way to get involved, and I've seen this happen a number of times, is especially from operations roles or it's happened within our company a number of times from other like customer support roles where there's needs within the product team, and so you start supporting or helping out in those areas where there's needs. So for us, for instance, we're building out our product marketing function. It's always been done by our product managers, but it falls under the product umbrella. And there's somebody on our business insights team that says, hey, I've always had an interest in product. Is there anything that I can do as you're developing that product marketing function? So it's volunteering, it's raising your hand, it's being curious in your role. I think that's the best way to be able to get into product. If you're interested, is set up an informational session with the head of product at your company or with somebody in a product role. Go out to lunch with them. I'm going to ask them, is there anything that any initiatives you're working on that I can help out with in my spare time? Either make time for yourself, or if you have spare time within your current role, work with your manager to step in and support product.
That's a great point. I mean, we reached out to you and said, hey, would you mind coming and talking to us? And it wasn't like, come on, guy. It was like, yeah, absolutely. I'm happy to. Like, we have seen that from a lot of people in the product space. I don't know if it happens to just be product people. They've all been really open to talking about, like you did, almost accidentally getting into it and loving it. And it's just become such a cool career for them that they are open to saying, hey, yeah, you're a younger person at my company. I'd love to show you how to get into it, or I'd love to have your support with my marketing stuff. And then, opens a lot of doors. And like we said earlier, back to David Ferguson, right? Your mentor, that person could become your mentor getting into the product space as you go. So
Absolutely.
Last question, really, really important one. We had this big discussion at lunch. Favorite TV show?
I also maybe I'm just holding on to remnants of my childhood and my youth, but I have to go back and probably say Seinfeld. It's been
you can't go wrong. You can't go
off air for 15 or 20 years, but like I don't find myself doing it as much now, but like back in college, there's so many points of reference that's like, oh, it's just like that Seinfeld episode where blah blah blah,
puffy shirt,
yada yada yada. It's just like that Seinfeld episode, yada yada yada.
I'm
man. Man, I have PTSD from Seinfeld. We've got a guy in the office. He's like our resident pug, where during lunch every day, John is like watching Seinfeld, eating Popeye's chicken and just snorting. And it's like it's a religious move. Seinfeld is like a religious show for him. He watches it every single lunch. Every day.
I've seen so many episodes multiple times. It's something that is such smart humor from my perspective that it doesn't get old. It's not like, oh, I've seen that episode, I don't need to see it again. It's like, oh, that episode is on, I love it.
Yeah.
It's so funny.
That was a good way to finish. So again, a couple of things, little shameless plugs. For those of you who are on LinkedIn or whatever, go to LinkedIn, go to Relo Metrics, follow the company. They're doing some amazing things. As you heard throughout this in both the sports and advertising space. It's pretty awesome. So go follow Relo Metrics. Kit, I can't thank you enough for coming on. This was a lot of fun. Now I need to go to Glacier National Park, so you just added a trip to my life. You need to come here and go to the Smokies and check those out. And now I feel like I need to watch an episode of Seinfeld. So
it's been great being here. Thank you guys both for having me. And check us out at Relo Metrics. We are actually hiring. I'll do a shameless plug. We're hiring for a product marketing manager.
Product marketing manager, Relo Metrics.
Relo Metrics.
Relo Metrics. Sorry, I had it right the whole time.
It's all good.
In my head, it was like Super Troopers. Let's count how many times you can say this right now. Relo Metrics, y'all. Relo Metrics in the house.
All right. Well, on that, to reference Seinfeld, we're out.
Next in.